If someone has suffered from deep depression and even attempted suicide multiple times, does that mean they've lost their faith? Does that mean they were never truly saved? I used to struggle with this question. When I met people weighed down by poverty, troubled by broken relationships, or facing terminal illness with resentment toward God, I often wondered, how could I lead them to hope in Christ? Then I discovered the story of the English poet William Cowper. Through his life, I came to understand the words of Isaiah 42:3. A bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not quench. He will faithfully bring forth justice. Once you understand this truth, you realize that no one, no matter how broken, fearful, or weak, is beyond the reach of God's gentle mercy. Today, in The Hidden Smile of God, Episode 5, we'll reflect on the God who never abandons the weak through the life of William Cowper. William Cowper was one of England's greatest poets and hymn writers. His works continue to be sung in churches all over the world. He wrote timeless hymns like There is a Fountain Filled with Blood and God Moves in a Mysterious Way. But his life was marked not by triumph, but by deep and recurring sorrow. He battled severe depression throughout his life, spent time in asylums, and made several attempts on his own life. Yet through it all, God did not abandon him. Instead, God displayed his strength through Cowper's weakness. Cowper was not a man who triumphed through joy, but one who never slipped from the hand of God, even in despair. Cowper's suffering began early. When he was only 6 years old, his mother died. That loss left an open wound in his heart. He later wrote, "After my mother's death, I felt like the most unloved child in the world." At boarding school, he endured relentless bullying and loneliness. The fear and rejection he experienced there became the deep roots of his later depression. As a young man, Cowper studied law, but on the eve of his final examination, he suffered a severe mental breakdown, a panic so overwhelming that he lost all sense of reality. In despair, he tried to end his life 3 times. Each time, God intervened. He later wrote, "I sought death, but God blocked every path. Now I know. It was his mercy that kept me alive." Afterward, Cowper was admitted to St. Alban's Asylum, where he began to read the Bible. While reading John 11:43, where Jesus says, "Lazarus, come out," the words pierced his soul. He wrote, "At that moment the darkness lifted. I saw the light. Jesus called me, and like Lazarus, I rose from the grave." That was the moment of his conversion. God gave Cowper a lifelong friend, John Newton, the former slave trader who wrote Amazing Grace. They lived in the same village of Olney, where Newton pastored and Cowper worshipped. Newton deeply understood Cowper's mental anguish and became his faithful encourager. Together, they wrote hymns, many of which were later published in Olney Hymns, 1779. Among them were There is a Fountain Filled with Blood and God Moves in a Mysterious Way. These were not songs of victory, but songs born out of anguish and faith. Hymns written in darkness, yet shining with divine light. Even after his conversion, Cowper's struggles did not end. He continued to battle depression, often believing he was beyond God's salvation. And yet, ironically, his most beautiful hymns were written in those very seasons of despair. God moves in a mysterious way, his wonders to perform. He plants his footsteps in the sea and rides upon the storm. These lines were not mere poetry. They were faith struggling to breathe in the midst of darkness. Cowper didn't understand God's providence, but he trusted that God was still. Cowper was not a man who conquered depression, but a man held by grace in the midst of depression. His life is not a model of strong faith, but a testimony that God never forsakes the weak. Even when our hands let go of God, his hands never let go of us. In his later years, Cowper still wrestled with doubt and divine silence. Yet those who cared for him testified that, at the moment of his death, a deep, peaceful smile rested upon his face. His final words were, "I am now going into the light, where there is no more pain." His entire life was a living proof of the hidden smile of God, the quiet joy of a father who holds his children through suffering. Cowper was weak all his life, and yet, through that weakness, the strength of God was revealed. His hymns still whisper the same truth today. God rides upon the storm. Cowper was never strong enough to hold on to God, but God was strong enough never to let him go. And this is our hope. The God who does not break the bruised reed, who does not extinguish the faint flame, is smiling behind the frowning providence. He is our gracious Father, who never abandons the weak. Next time, we'll look at the life of the suffering missionary David Brainerd and reflect on the power of enduring hardship with hope.